All right, Anna, we have another Reddit advice question, this time coming from Large Distance 2510. My fiance has just ended everything with 9 weeks until the wedding.
Oh, wow.
My fiance, female 22, has ended everything with me, male 23, and says there's no chance of us getting back together. I got back from work yesterday and sat on the bed, and she told me it was over and that the decision is final, and she isn't interested in us getting back together in any way. I'm in shock. We've been together for 7.5 years, since we were about 15, and never really had any issues until October of last year. I had just lost my job, and she was away training for her new role. She said that she hadn't been happy since August, and I needed to step up. Since then, I've pretty much done everything around the house, cooking, cleaning, washing up, feeding the cat, everything, and she would still say I needed to do more. 1 week, I would spend too much time with her, and she needed space, and the next, she felt alone in the relationship. I'm staying at a friend's house tonight, but I don't know what to do.
Wow.
That's pretty serious.
This is a very serious question here, and let's see if we can help out a little bit.
All right. Been together 7.5 years. That's a long time.
That is a long time. They started at 15.
Yeah.
What I will say is between 15 and 22, 23, you do a lot of growing up, a lot of changing,
maturing,
a lot of changing, hopefully, yes. So the person and people they were back at 15 are not the person and people they are today. So that can be driving some of the situation here, I would say.
So the only thing I'm going to say about the perspective Large Distance has, it says we haven't had any issues until October of last year. That's from his perspective. I doubt that was necessarily what his fiance was feeling.
That's very true.
Right? Because throughout what Large Distance has put here, you do have her saying she hasn't been happy since August, and he needed to step up. Step up how? It seems like it was more like, hey, it's the house stuff. It's life stuff. And then that wasn't enough. She said, I needed to do more. Now, again, could be unreasonable expectations. She could have meant more in a romantic relationship standpoint and not just work around the house.
Well, and I will point out, he said he had lost his job, but he said he got back from work. So I'm assuming he found a new job.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that means then she got used to him doing all the housework stuff and then he got a job and now he's not doing as much on the housework front.
Yeah, it
possibly.
What you have to say is it sounds like you went through some tough times, and tough times are what stress a relationship. Like you really don't know what kind of relationship you have until you work through difficult times. It's also possible that getting together at 15, which is really young.
Real young.
Really young. I mean, even a couple years after that, getting, together around 18. Those three, between 15 and 18, an immense amount of growing up happens. And if you were actually together, not seeing other people, not experiencing or trying out different relationships, that may be where she is. And the wedding, the fact that she ended things 9 weeks before the wedding, she may have just realized it. Maybe she was not really happy with the relationship, but the more she thought about it, and that this, you've been together 7.5 years and only now getting to a wedding part, that's kind of interesting too, because that's a long time to go in a relationship before getting married. They're probably concerned.
Sorry to interrupt, but because marriage is a big commitment. It's a legal commitment. And a lot of people view it very much so as a lifelong commitment. So she's looking at it maybe through those lenses.
It's funny.
And she's evaluating and reevaluating.
It's funny, though, because it's like they spent 7.5 years of their lives together. That's far more of a commitment than the one day of the marriage. And I know the marriage is, yes, it's more legal. It's more like, hey, financial. There's a lot of other things that happen when you get married. But it's funny how that one day, that line in the sand, changes how you think about a relationship, even if you have spent an enormous amount of time just kind of boyfriend, girlfriend, or, partner, living in the same space or whatever for a long period of time. But the word marriage and the act of getting married is such a divisive things sometimes in relationships you thought were good.
And what I'd like to point out too is that a relationship that you would be having as a teenager, you're both living at your prospective home, so you're not cohabitating together, or most likely not cohabitating together, I would say. And you're in school, you're not financially responsible for yourself, but you hit that 18 mark, you graduate from high school. Now you're in the early adulthood and you're becoming financially responsible for yourself. Maybe you're cohabitating now. So that is going to put a very different perspective on the relationship of how she's looking and thinking and
all
feeling
the life
about
experiences
it.
You're
and
going
the life
to get.
experiences,
and it changes as you get older. So large distance, what I would argue is, you don't know what to do. Well, this is a relationship, so there's two parts to it, and it doesn't sound like you're being given any real choice here, right? Mm-hmm. She doesn't want this relationship anymore. You've spent the better part of your life in this relationship now, your adult life in this relationship, and it looks like it may have ended. So you probably just need to come to terms with it. Because it had been you were working on it. She was trying to give you ideas, but maybe she wasn't clear, or maybe she just isn't happy, and that made her feel better trying to tell you things to do, but it never got there. It's hard to say because she would have to speak up on her side to see how this really was. But ultimately, her actions are clear. She's called off the wedding. She's called off the relationship, and it really wasn't working out for her. So you do have to be more introspective about maybe what you could have done differently. It's not really going to always be about the chores. I don't think. That feels like a red herring a bit. It's like, do more around the house. This is more of a relationship thing. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just growing apart. Maybe she grew apart from you and you didn't realize that. And she realized it right before the wedding. I wouldn't take this personally. I wouldn't look at it as a reflection. It's going to
be hard not to take it personally.
I know,
it's going to be painful.
It is painful.
And we're not saying it's not going to be painful.
Relationships ending are always rough, but you have the rest of your life ahead of you. You do have to look at things going forward and say, all right, how do I move forward? How do I look towards the next relationship? Maybe I should just be alone for a while, work on yourself, how you're feeling. Get yourself into a better place. This is a tough situation. You would hope that in a good relationship, you would already know the problems that are happening. The fact that things are kind of a surprise means there were problems. And that does mean you weren't picking up on them. She wasn't communicating. You weren't communicating with her in a way that made her feel like she could communicate with you. I'm not playing blame at anyone. It's just that's a relationship that's actually not working as well as you think it was. When these things come out of nowhere, they didn't come out of nowhere. It's just that no one was talking to each other. And that's why it feels like it comes out of nowhere.
And I'll say sometimes the hardest thing to do in a relationship is communicate openly and honestly without judgment or without too much judgment with your partner. Because maybe she didn't feel that she could talk to you about whatever doubts, fears, concerns, dislikes that she was having within the relationship. So a good question for you is to maybe ask yourself, well, why might that have been the case, that she didn't feel comfortable speaking with me?
Right. And the answer may be she's the one messed up. That can always be the answer.
Absolutely.
But Large, what you really need to look at is, hey, it ended now before you got married, before you were financially tied together.
Before you had kids.
You actually dodged a bullet here. And I know that's hard to look at it that way right now. But this is actually a good thing before you actually really were in a level of commitment that becomes financially painful and maybe emotionally painful, as Anna said, with kids. Now you can move forward with kind of eyes wide open on the situation.
Well, and what I'd like to point out too is, it's not uncommon for, one person to pull out of a wedding before it takes place. And sometimes they just need to hit a pause button and the couple's able to work through whatever issues cause that person to hit the pause button. Other times it's over. So, and it might be that she's saying she doesn't want to get back together, but she could come back around and say,
I don't think you would. I don't think
I don't know.
I think they've been working on it. I would argue that there's not a coming back on this one. They've been working on it for a while, and she kind of said, no more. So anyway, that's our opinion. That's our advice to you. Large, thank you for the question. And if anyone has any feedback for Large, please post that in the comments down below. And thank you.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video.
And we appreciate that. If you need advice, go ahead and click on the link in the description below, and it may get answered in a later episode.
And if you want to watch more Twice the Advice, check out our other videos right now.